Hey friends, nice to see you all. It's time for Global Tarot Circle. Glad that you're here. We'll welcome people as they come on into the room. This is one of three meetups we do on YouTube every month, and this was the one that originally started back in 2012. Hey friends, nice to see you all. It's time for Global Tarot. Okay, sorry. I was echoing myself there. Okay. This started back in like actually more like 2010, 2011 on WebEx, and then we moved to Facebook Live, and now we're here on YouTube. And I am so happy to see all of you. So, we have some great things to discuss today. I do want to start by mentioning StarCon at the very beginning of the chat here. I've dropped a bunch of links about StarCon. And Sarah mentioned she bought her ticket today. Very well done. So ticket prices range from $5 to $499, depending on what you want. And Melanie says she just checked the StarCon agenda. It's a knockout. It really is. And the thing that's going to drive you nuts is a lot of time. Now, if you get the $5 ticket, there are 8 classes that you'll have access to. So that's easy, and they're great classes. But if you get the full conference ticket, there are many time slots where you have to choose between 3 or even 4 events at the same time. And that's going to drive you crazy. Except the good news is they will be recorded, and whatever your ticket theoretically gives you access for, like if you buy a ticket for just Saturday, every Saturday class will be available to you in archive. And here's Marcy, and she's going to be one of the readers in our psychic fair. Excuse me. I get excited just thinking about it. So we will have a full-on psychic fair with vendors, with readers. And I found out today, excuse me, that the general public, hey, Fast Horse is one of our presenters. The general public will be allowed into just the exhibitor hall. And then anyone with a ticket from the $5 to the $4.99 ticket, anyone with any kind of ticket will be available. Will be welcome to the vendor hall. So we're going to have all kinds of great vendors and readers. Oh, Anna, you got to hear the interview with Maria Luisa, and she's actually going to be presenting in Spanish and in English. So if you are Spanish speaking and want to hear what she has to say in Spanish, we got you covered. I am so excited about doing that. So it's great to see all of you coming into the room. I'm so glad that you're here. And I wanted to promote just a couple of other things before we get started. I am doing a free class here on Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's New York time. We'll be here for an hour, and it is Time and Tarot, how the cards speak about time. We all know that timing in a reading is like the hardest thing, right? So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about what to do to make it easier. I also want to let you know I am teaching a premium class on Zoom this month. I will not be doing a premium class on Zoom in January because StarCon, I got my hands full. But on December 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are doing Tarot Stories, Trends, and Blends. If you want to know how to put the cards together to tell the story, this is a very good class to take. You need a ticket. You can find a ticket on my website, tarotbychristiana.com. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. It's nice to see all of you here. And for those of you watching in archive, thank you so much for being here. So our format, do you guys ever want to change up the format? For all of these meetups, we got like stuck into, really, this is the format that we started back in like 2010 on WebEx. And we've just been doing it ever since, where the first half we do readings, and the second half we talk about tarot stuff. I'm willing to switch that up if you ever get bored with this and want to do it a different way, want to do something different. I'm okay with that. Let me know, and let me know some ideas for a new format if you'd like to do something new. So, we're going to get started with readings, and here's how it works. I will see the question and I'll take them in order. I will pull one card and tell you what I think. Anyone else who wants to do the reading can tag the person we're reading for, put the name of the card you got and your interpretation. So we're all doing one card readings, but if you put it together, it's a full spread. Melanie says she likes the format. Okay, good. I do too. I mean, that's why we do it 3 times a month. So if you're good with it, I'm good with it. But if you have any ideas, I'm always happy to try something different. And, this is your time. So whatever you want to do with your time, we'll do, pretty much. So if you have asked a question and we read for you, then what you got to do is read through the comments in order to get your full reading. And we're going to start with a question from David Victor. Burning question. Finance is getting tighter with the loss of freelance work due to quarantine. Trying like mad to find some work. Any insights would be welcome. If you would like to do this reading, at David Victor, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. 4 of Wands. You will be fine. You will be fine. You will be stable. You'll be okay. I don't have a lot of ideas of how to do that from this card, but I know that you will be fine. So let's see if other people pulling cards have some ideas. And the floor right now is open for questions. Let me say hi to some people here. Anna, Melanie, Karen Winkle, Sarah just bought her StarCon ticket. Let's see, Melanie is here, Marcy is here, Tammy is here, but is really Fast Horse. And he is indeed one of our StarCon presenters. And La Morena Senpena, so happy to see you here. Okay, so anyone want to get going reading for David? Go ahead and do that and put it on in. And anyone with a question, go ahead and ask your question. We have some great topics for the second half. If you're not a member of the Global Tarot Circle group on Facebook, please do jump over there, not right now, but later. Jump over there and ask to join. Hey, Jake5345, you're really Robin, and we're glad you're here. So that's where I will always, like the day before or the day of, when we have a meetup, I'll always say, what do you want to talk about? And sometimes people don't have any ideas. Sometimes they have a bunch. We got like 4 good ideas for today. And so we've got love for the format here from David, from Melanie. So I guess we'll keep our format. Very good. Okay, we got readings happening for David. Hey, Sally Larkin, nice to see you. Glad you're here. And Sally has done what really we should all do. Say your name, say where in the world you are, and what deck you're working with. I'm Christiana. I'm in Palm City, Florida, working with Spiral Tarot. Okay, so Karen Winkle. The anti-maskers are having civil disobedience shopping events. Oh my goodness gracious. You mean super spreader events at my local store. It makes me extremely angry. Makes me extremely angry. How can I let the anger go or channel it into a more positive direction? I think it's funny, the people who have made this be an issue of like civil rights or whatever, it's just such an interesting phenomenon, and we could talk about it for a really long time. But the question is, how do you handle your anger and upset at this, especially since you have a family full of medical workers? Now, if you'd like to do this reading, what should Karen Winkle do with her anger? go ahead and at Karen Winkle, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. The Seven of Swords. And that's funny because this is my COVID card. Since COVID started, when this card comes up in certain contexts, it speaks to me of COVID risk. And of course, it's hard because they're creating risk for others too, right? So that's hard. But basically, stay away from them, stay away from the risk, and recognize on some level this is a self-limiting problem. And people are going to do what people are going to do. They did the same thing with the Spanish flu in 1918 through 1920. Exactly the same thing. And so we haven't grown in a century, certainly. But just recognize it's part of human nature. Stay out of their way. And it is self-limiting. That's the best you're going to do from my perspective. Okay, let's see. Who's our next question? Okay, Sally Larkin. What does the universe want me to know? If you would like to do this reading, at Sally Larkin, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. What does the universe want Sally to know? I shuffled, and this is the second time I've pulled the Four of Wands. And I think for you, it really is about finding happiness, finding stability, maybe even finding love, recognizing that there are so many good things available to you. And just know that. Again, at Sally Larkin, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. Okay, lots of great readings going on. Thank you so much. And right now the floor is open for readings as people are coming into the room. We do welcome you. For those of you who just came in, I want to remind you that we have a free class here on Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Time and tarot will be our topic, how we tell time with tarot. So, who has a question? Who has a burning question? Lots of lots of great readings coming in. Karen, about her anti-maskers, says, I'll just try to chill. Staying away is easy, right? I mean, that's the thing. And it is, it is such a difficult thing. But there it is. It's what we're dealing with. Okay, and more readings coming in. Here is a question from Sarah, a card from my mom. What does the universe want Sarah's mom to know? All right. If you would like to do this reading, at Sarah, the name of the card you got, and your interpretation. What does the universe want Sarah's mom to know? The Page of Wands, she is loved by the younger members of her family, like her daughter. But there's more to this. I would say she has to remember her humor, remember her creativity, remember to be young at heart, and to remember to communicate. So youth, communication, creativity, and humor are things she really wants to nurture within herself. Okay, and again, if you'd like to do that reading, at Sarah, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. So Marcy, you got the Four of Wands for Sarah too. Do you typically see that in context as a card of marriage? I mean, are we predicting that Sally's going to be getting married? One never knows, does one? But it's a thought, or, simply stability. That card came up earlier for Dave in terms of his, his finances, stability there. And interesting, a little context from Sally, Four of Wands fits. Mom and I are likely moving back to Connecticut because my sister has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. I am so sorry to hear that, Sally. That is really, really difficult news. I am so sorry for that. And so the Four of Wands does make sense in that context, for sure. for sure. But I hope you come back to Florida later on. We liked having you here. And remember that StarCon is online only, so we would love to see you at StarCon wherever in the world you happen to be. And I am so sorry to hear that this is happening. That's a very difficult thing, certainly. All right, on to our next question. Who has our next question? And I think it's interesting given, that's really devastating. Sally comes from a close family. And Marcy sees the Four of Wands as stability, organization, and joy. When we're talking about a very difficult cancer diagnosis, and the Four of Wands comes up, I would think, 10 of Swords, or 7 of Swords, or 8 of Swords, or 9 of Swords, or something. But we got the Four of Wands. And I think that could be hopeful for the outcome. I really do. And I think it does give a focus that the joy of reunion, the joy of reuniting the family, of bringing the family together, really needs to be the focus here. And tarot is so interesting in the way it sort of deals with these issues. I have found it so very interesting over time that there are people I don't even know. I do a reading for them and I'm like, ooh, get to the doctor and get a mammogram right away. They call me and say, oh my gosh, you gave me some really important information that was helpful. And yet I have close friends, family members, where I did not see something like that until it was way too late. So it is very interesting to think about when we see get thee to a doctor and when we don't, and the way these things show up in the cards. And that doesn't mean that Sally is overjoyed at what's going on in her family, most certainly. And this is something we have to think about as readers, because when we welcome people to our table, they may be dealing with any number of difficult things, right? And within that, if we get a card like the Four of Wands, which tends to be very joyful, and that's coming up to talk about a family member's cancer journey, we have to really think about that and recognize that, we are not telling them not to be sad or upset or worried, but we are offering them what the universe has to say, which is within this, there can be positivity and stability, for sure. Okay, Marcy says, so sorry to hear that, but that's not the energy I'm getting from the Ford ones. Do you mean the Four of Wands? It's more about the stability, realizing that you can get through it all by being in your heart and taking things day by day. Right. And so, but it's interesting that there are times the cards will be like very clear. This is what's going on, get thee to a doctor. And other times that the message is very different and certainly comforting and certainly able to be interpreted within that context. Oh, that is so interesting. Sally says there are 4 kids in the family. We get the Four of Wands. There are 4 kids in the family. My mother and I are returning to support Susan, giving stability. So it really does make so much sense. And, thank you for being a teachable moment there, for sure. For sure. So very, very interesting. Yeah, I figured out four was Four of Wands. It took me a minute. I had to say it, but there it was. So, and that's one of the reasons we do these meetups is it's interesting in real time to see how the cards come up. And I think this is where a lot of readers, new readers or mediocre readers, get tripped up because they want a card to mean the same thing over and over and over and over again. Now, for me, the Four of Wands really is a marriage card. Not always, but it can be. And maybe on this journey, Sally will meet the person she's going to marry. Who the heck knows? But to recognize that a card can mean so many different things. And to recognize here, when Sally says, hey, there's 4 kids in the family, it makes so much sense. And that's where being able to do a reading where you can have a conversation and really talk about, okay, this is what this card is. How does it fit? And, sometimes our psychic ability, our intuition will take that forward. But sometimes it really is in conversation and picking it apart. And that doesn't make it any less remarkable or any less helpful and healing. Okay, and now here La Morena gets the devil, which is something I would consider given what's going on here, because Cancer can be a very devilish thing. So that totally makes sense. Very, very interesting. Okay. Other questions? Hey, Karen Maynard, nice to see you here. Glad that you're here today. All right, who else has a question? We will, the floor is open for questions for readings for the next few minutes. And then we will switch into our discussion time. And we've got a number of great questions that we found from the Global Tarot Circle Facebook group for our discussion this evening. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. So other questions? Who wants to know something? Oh, interesting. Sally says, Mom and I are fire signs. So again, there's your wands, and we'll need to set up a new residence. There you go. And so I would assume that will be fairly quick and easy. And that makes sense. So we will miss you here, but during COVID, I don't get to see you anyway. So there it is. Okay. Other questions? What else we got going on here? What would you like to know? And as we're waiting for questions, I will also share with you some of the discussion topics we have for today, and we can start that as well. The first one was about how we collect our decks. The question was one of, does it make sense to try different decks and to have a big collection? How many decks do you have? How do you use them? What is your relationship with deck collection? How does that work for you? Do you have a bunch of decks? Do you use the same deck over and over again? How does that work? And so if you would like to talk about how many decks you own, I think my number's like 150. Hey, Shannon and Angelic Michelle, very good. Glad you're here. And we will do the reading about Michelle's retirement. But the first discussion topic, and you can go ahead and tag it decks. Do you have a lot of decks? Do you use the same deck? If you have a lot of decks, do you use them all in readings? Do you use them for different things? How does that all work? And does it make you a better reader to use different decks? And do you do it in the same tradition or different traditions? Do you read Crowley and wait? Do you read Marseille and wait? How does that all work for you? Tag it decks and let us know. And let's do this reading for Angelic Michelle. If you'd like to do this reading, at Angelic Michelle, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. Okay. I'm wondering about retirement in March, retiring in March. I'm nervous about it. So, what can we say about Michelle's potential retirement? What do we see there? The devil. The devil. So, Michelle, this is not saying to me that you should or should not retire. It's saying there's a lot you really need to look at as you think about this. And it's not just about money. It's about identity. It's about what you're going to be doing with your time. It's about so many things. So the answer I have is you have much to consider. as you look at this. It's not a bad idea necessarily. And remember that the devil is the gatekeeper to spiritual enlightenment. And so could retirement allow you the opportunity to begin a whole new spiritual journey? And are you willing to allow yourself to do that? So, at Angelic Michelle, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. Okay, let's see. Okay, Karen Maynard. A message from Spirit for Karen Maynard. If you would like to answer this question, the name of the card you got, your interpretation, and start it all with at Karen Maynard. A message from Spirit for dear Karen. The Two of Swords. So at the end of the day, it's up to you. What do you want to do? What do you want to decide? You have been keeping the balance and keeping the peace for a very long time. Do you want to keep doing that, or do you want to do something different? You need to figure out what works for you. That's really the bottom line here. Okay. And we've got Shannon Shaban. So nice to see you. Should I start a soap bath bomb business? All right. If you would like to do this reading at Shannon Shaban, the name of the card you got and your interpretation, 8 of Cups reversed. So here's the thing. I think you have to really look at, do you have the time? Do you have the energy? Do you want to tie yourself to this? If you start it, you're going to do it and you're going to be in it. And this is not saying that it will or will not be successful. It's just a lot. It's a lot of work. And so you have to decide if you really want to commit yourself to it. Okay. So, regarding the question about decks, how do you handle decks? Do you have a lot of decks? Do you have a few decks? What do you do? Angelic Michelle has about 200. You got me beat. Some of those are Oracle decks, me too. And you use the weight system quite a bit. Okay. And so, with having been at your job for 36 years, Michelle, do you feel like that has become a bit of slavery? Because the devil can really speak of being enslaved as well. So there's that. Okay, Marcy, I have a bunch, maybe 50 or 60, but mainly I use some form or another of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Yeah, same. Lucia would love a message from Spirit. Okay, if you would like to do this reading at Lucia Tamarcio, did I say that right? The name of the card you got and your interpretation. Ooh, 2 of Cups. How's your love life? If you're already with someone, this could really speak in a very positive way toward that. If you're single, this could be about meeting someone great. Maybe it's not even about relationship. Maybe it's about a great collaboration at work. Maybe it's even about being a good partner to yourself. Maybe it's all 3. One way or the other, it's a good thing. Okay, La Morena. I'm having a severe internal struggle from an estranged, we could say, external relationship. Am I seeing things correctly? Is there any fixing this, or how should I trust myself and peace out? And when? Ah, Michelle, you do see it as slavery. That makes sense. So yes, definitely retire then, right? Okay. So if you'd like to do this one, La Morena Sin Pena, the name of the card you got and your interpretation. The world, the world, when we talk about perspective on things, really does say pull back and take a bigger perspective. And the thing is, it's hard not to take this personally, but what you're dealing with is this person's world view, not this person's view about you. And you're taking it personally, and understandably so. But you could look at it a different way. I mean, it still feels pretty unhealthy, I got to say, but you could look at it a different way. And you could also not let this person's words, thoughts, and feelings get into your world. You can be in your world and have your own worldview. Okay, Karen Maynard regarding decks. I'm not so sure, maybe 30 to 35. I'm addicted to cartomancy. I'm in love with almost every single one. I recently got one I thought I didn't like, and now I'm starting to fall in love with that one. You know, I've had that too. I have definitely had that, where I got a deck, I didn't really like it, and then I look at it again in a month or in 6 months or in a couple of years, and all of a sudden, oh, now it's the right time for this deck. That can definitely happen. Okay. Dave Victor has the classic Rider-Waite-Smith. Got it as a gift in 1978, and it's my power deck. I bought a lovely deck, Intuitive Tarot. I got another Rider-Waite-Smith for $4 at a used bookstore, so I use that for classes. Got it. Got it. Karen says, I have tarot and oracle decks, but considering getting a Lenormand, and especially if you're going to do StarCon, we have 2 Lenormand things at StarCon. One class and one discussion group, just saying. And we will also have a Lenormand lounge. So you can hang out in the Lenormand lounge and play with people and do readings. So there's that. Oh gosh. Oh man. So Angelic Michelle, quit your job. My gosh, retire. Okay. Hey Dina, nice to see you. Oh, here's an interesting one. Sally says being broke helps with deck addiction. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, here's an ethical question from Sally. I sometimes have prophetic dreams. Show of hands, other people who do? Yes. The event is clear enough, but the time frame is unknown. My sister's brain tumor showed 6 years after my dream. Friend gets badly hurt. Do I tell her? Geez Louise. Okay, my answer, I would actually do a reading about it. Before I would say anything, I would do a very deep reading to get some sense of direction. You know, one thing I have learned in psychic work is just because we can see something doesn't mean we should say something. So I'd love to hear what other people have to say about that. Go ahead and tag it dreams. And regarding decks from Anna, I have about 80. I like to use 2 or 3 different decks in a reading. Nice. I like to mix tarot with oracles and or cubes. Different decks make the message more eclectic because I read the images. Got it. Okay. Very good. Karen Winkle, decks. I feel like such a slacker. I've only got maybe 10 tarot decks, probably 6 oracle and 2 Lenormand. That's not a slacker at all. That's good. You're fine. And you know, I know some people who have like been reading for 50 years and have the same deck they started with and just that one deck. You don't have to have a bunch of decks. You don't have to. Really. Okay. So we are past the halfway mark of our time together. So let's get into some more discussion questions. The floor is now open for discussion questions. What would you like to know about tarot, about doing this work, about particular cards, about particular decks? What question do you have? Right now we have 2 conversations going. One is about the collection of decks and how that works for us. Another is about, we're tagging it dreams. It's about prophetic dreams, or, you know, any way that you get information. If you see something, should you say something? Should you not say something? So let's see what Dora has to say about this. I totally agree. Not everything we see is supposed to be said. We have to think about whether the information would help the person. Agreed. Agreed. Angelic Michelle, dreams, agree. We don't have to say everything. I had a very bad experience the one time I said something. I don't think we should worry people. And I think what the problem is sometimes we think that if we got the message, we got it for a reason. But I don't always think that's how psychic stuff works. Sometimes we're just like an antenna and we pick up whatever. And like my big issue has been going back to the earlier thing. Why do I sometimes see things for people like a health issue that is progressive? I see it at a time where they can do something about it. And then other people, even people I'm closest to, I haven't. Why do you sometimes see things, sometimes not? I think that does have to do with spiritual path, that a person may have a particular thing they have to go through, and it's not up to a reader to change it. Another time, it may be that I was in that position because I was meant to make that change for that person. So it's not really us at all. It's us just doing what we're here to do. And that's funny because I believe in free will, first and foremost. So this whole free will versus fate thing, and then you add into it magic and manifestation, it boggles the mind, right? So many different ways that it could be and the ways that we work within it. It's an interesting thing. Hey, Julie Barrett, nice to see you. Okay, back to decks with Shannon. I have a lot of decks, but the meanings seem to change with the different decks. I've not been able to really connect with other decks. Interesting. Karen Maynard, I have prophetic dreams. When I was a kid, I sat up in the middle of the night and gave my mom a winning lottery number. Wow. And she says, go ahead and tell her. Fair enough. Okay. Shannon, are you asking me if I'm doing classes? Who's that for or to? I'll go ahead and take it though, one way or the other. I have a free class coming up here on my YouTube channel, Saturday, 10:30 a.m. We're doing timing with tarot. I have a premium class on Zoom, December 17th, Tarot Stories, Trends, and Blends, how we put the cards together to tell a story. You need a ticket for that. You can get it on my website, tarotbychristiana.com. And we have StarCon coming up January 22nd through 24th. It is an online conference. We have like 32 presenters. Ticket prices range literally from $5 to $500. So I'm sure you can find something in there that will fit. And I am teaching a full pre-conference intensive that Friday, the 22nd, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., a day-long event with me called Operational Tarot. Within that day, we'll do 4 different classes having to do with how we really work with tarot, how we really do readings. Throughout the weekend, we have some amazing speakers, Benabel Wen, Nancy Hendrickson, Mary Greer, Tony Pula. We've got the Tarot Show with Kate Mura. All kinds of great stuff going on. I dropped the links for that at the very beginning of the comment feed. So scroll up and get those links and check it out. And I would love to see you at our free class here on Saturday and also our premium class on December 17th. All right. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, and so Karen Maynard, you say tell her, but you don't say why. Would love to know. Okay, Karen Winkle, on the ethical question, I would be very careful and get direction on whether the information will be able to affect the situation. Otherwise, it could create unnecessary worry. Yeah. Yes. Hi, glad you're back, Karen Maynard. December 17th, yes, and I'm working with Spiral Tarot tonight. Okay, Julie Barrett, dreams. I don't share unless it's a very clear directive to share it, and even then I would ask if they want to hear it. Sally, give my love to your mom and to your whole family. Stay in touch. our thoughts and prayers and all of that go with you and your family. Eva Morris, nice to see you. Do you learn the tarot cards first and then hone into your intuition, or vice versa? Or is it different for all? Okay, yes, Karen, please do tell us why. Okay, so here's a can of worms question I'm very happy to address from Eva Morris. If you would like to answer this question, tag it Learning Tarot. And what she asks, again, listen carefully. Do you learn the tarot cards first and then hone into your intuition, or vice versa? Or is it different for all? I would argue it's different for all. Everyone has their own way in. You got to come in the way you're going to come in. I would I would say it could really be both at once. And for me, I'll tell you how it was for me. I learned the cards. I really did. But then in a reading, as soon as I started doing a reading, and this is the thing, a lot of people are like, well, I don't really know the cards, so I'm sticking to 1 card readings or 3 card readings. I was like, screw that, 11 cards. I still do an 11 card reading most of the time. And I started with that bad boy. That was it. That's how I'm starting. And so I'd be there with the book looking at the 11 cards, but the flow came almost immediately. I got into the zone almost immediately. And so I feel like for me, I learned the cards and the intuition just came. And I think that will for a lot of people. Okay. Oh, here's a good one on the same on the same thing, same concept. Can you be a tarot reader without being psychic? This is a question from Sarah. And okay, if you'd like to handle this one, tag it psychic. Tell us what you think. No right or wrong. I would argue that A, we're all pretty psychic. B, if you're going to be a professional card reader, you're going to be psychic, whether you claim it or not. I never called myself psychic until it became really clear that that was the name of what I do. So for me, again, it's very operational. That's why I'm calling my pre-conference day Operational Tarot. If it feels psychic, it is psychic, I guess. I mean, how do you know? What does it mean to be psychic? Maybe you're just making lucky guesses. Who the heck knows? So I think anyone can work with tarot. Anyone can find wisdom from tarot. The more you work with tarot, the more psychic you will become. And if you're going to be a professional reader, you probably have some natural skill there, whether you claim it or not. Okay, Dora, I think it is part of our learning as channelers too, how to treat the info we receive in a mature way, say it or not say it, and exercise for our discernment. So that's back to that ethical question. Okay, and on that same topic from Marcy, I suggest feeling into the center of your heart. And if you feel a loving vibration, that would be powerful and for the greatest good to share. If it doesn't feel good, I suggest not sharing. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Dina, Saturday is a very good day in astrology. Venus trine Neptune, good for imagination. Good, because we're having a class then. That's wonderful. Okay, Angelic Michelle, about learning tarot. I think it can be both, book learning or intuitive, and different for everyone. I agree. La Morena, Dex, I only have a few. I want more, maybe dozens, not hundreds. I also use different cartomancy and tarot systems, so I've sort of had to make my own way. Spiritual consumerism defeats the point. Shrug. Fair enough. Okay, back to the tell, don't tell. Hashtag dreams. Karen Maynard, so I can understand the opposite view. You could ask her. In my experience, people will not change their course of action most of the time, even if they want to. In the case of scaring a person, not cool. Yeah, seriously. Dave, learning tarot. You're probably drawn to tarot. Yes, yes, this is what I'm talking about. You're probably drawn to tarot because of your intuition. If not, tarot will just be a toy for you. It's a chicken and egg thing. I think that makes a lot of sense. Anna, about learning. To me, learning and intuition happen together. They kind of help each other. Like a marriage, one cannot really step into each other's space. Yep. Dina says, learn tarot meanings, but allow the card images to speak to you. Also meditate it regularly as it opens up intuition. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Angelic Michelle agrees with me. Thank you. Karen Winkle, learning tarot. I'm a good memorizer, but it didn't really work for me. So I just went with intuition. I feel like that's just the way the universe wanted me to do it. Fair enough. La Morena, Dex, I wanted to have enough variety to fulfill the needs for me and anyone I read for. About learning to read, I always learn meanings first and then practice a lot and make it my own, especially if you're charging money. Karen says, I think everyone is psychic except maybe my husband. I sort of believe that too, that everyone is basically psychic, but some way more than others. Karen Maynard, psychic. I agree everyone has psychic abilities, and then using tarot enhances these abilities. Heck yeah. Marcy, my intuition was strong first. I learned the structure of tarot as an archetypal framework to deliver the message. The cards often repeat what I previously discussed with the client. Dave, psychic. I agree we're all psychics. It's our sixth sense that saved our butts from being jumped by a saber-toothed tiger. Agreed. But levels of expertise will be different. Your mileage may vary. Yep. La Morena, psychic. I agree with Christiana, but some families, cultures, or traditions definitely give you a leg up on that. So true. Like we traditionally interpreted dreams and read horoscopes and cards. Right. Okay, great conversation. So let's go on to something. Oh, here's a question from Shannon. We can save some of these other questions for our next meetup if we need to. Shannon, do you ever lay out an entire spread and just think, what the heck does this mean? Yes, and yes. Yes, and yes. And Dina says, isn't it interesting when we just have an affinity with a deck? Feels like a conversation is happening. So, as someone who does readings every single day, day in and day out, I will tell you, right, and Dave says more often than I'd like to admit, yes. With a reading for self or reading for others, sometimes you'll lay the deck out, or you lay the spread out, and it'll be like, okay, I know exactly what's going on here. And you'll speak it, and it is exactly what's going on. Other times you might interpret it in a way that would be classically appropriate, but it doesn't fit what's really going on. You have to dig in. And then sometimes I'll look at it and I won't have a clue what's going on. So let me tell you some tricks about this. Number one, make room for every experience. Whatever your experience is with that spread in that moment is the right experience. It's not that you suddenly became a lousy reader in that moment. This is the experience you need to have with these cards at this time. And there's a reason for it. And like for me, if I look at the cards and I find them very confusing, it's because my client is very confused, right? Or if I'm reading for myself, it's because I'm very confused. So the cards reflect back what's going on. If you don't know how to pick it apart and you don't know how to tell the story, a great thing to do is just make a list. Not in any order of importance, just these are the things that I see here. Make a list, and on that list of everything I see here, how is this thing true? Okay, I see here an issue with work. Okay, what's true about the issue with work? I see here a relationship, a love relationship. Is there a love relationship? What do we know about that? And just go through and make a list of what you see. And recognize that with a spread may give you answers, but it may also ask questions. So keep a list of the questions and then read on each question. Okay. Dave, it's been my practice to lay cards out one at a time to build the story. but I know others lay out the whole spread. Is one method better than the other? I do both depending on my mood and depending on how it feels in the moment. Because, if I do it one at a time, I'm definitely going to want to get the whole picture at the end because I'm going to want to know, are all the suits present? Is there more than one of any particular rank or number? How many majors versus minors? I'm going to want to see how they all work together. You can do a whole reading without interpreting a single card just by looking at the trends within the spread. So at some point you have to do that. Whether you do it first or last doesn't really matter. And I think if you go cards one at a time, it will tell the linear story. But sometimes the story isn't linear. Sometimes you got to jump around to put it together. So it depends. Okay. Dora says, I agree. You will see what needs to be seen. If you can't see anything, there's a reason for that. But if you keep looking, you will. I have never had the experience of not being able to do the reading. I know that does happen to people. And if it happens, it happens. No big. But if you're just patient and breathe with it, it'll come. It just sometimes takes longer. Okay. Hey, Angelic Michelle, thank you so much. Okay, Dina, is your not knowing an energy that person is in a place of not knowing? Right. If you're not knowing, it's because the person's not knowing. However you're experiencing the cards is what the person is experiencing in some way, without a doubt. Okay. Melanie, is there a value in practicing reading with only majors, only minors, or just court cards? It seems like the changed emphasis would help with learning. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there. For learning, for practicing, there's great value. I think once you know all the cards, if you're doing an actual reading, it's best to use all the cards. But while learning or for an exercise, it's a very good idea. Hey, Marcy, thanks so much for being here. See you soon. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have 8 minutes left. And the floor is still open for questions. I'll open the floor now, too, for shameless self-promotion. If you have a website, an Instagram account, a blog post you want people to read, go ahead and post it in. I'll remind everyone that my website is tarotbychristiana.com, and also to go to the StarCon page, STAARCON.com, and check things out. And here's what I'm going to float, and we'll talk about it again before the end of the month. This came from Peely. You know that each year has a card association, right? And so 2020 is the year of the Emperor because 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 is 4. And the Emperor is card 4. 2021, of course, is the year of the Hierophant. What do we think about that? What do we think about 2020 being the year of the Emperor? 2021 being the year of the Hierophant? What do you think? I don't love it because for me, the Hierophant is all about like authority. And I mean, on a medical level, I do see the Hierophant as I'm talking it out. I do see the Hierophant as doctors, and doctors is something we need a lot of right now. So that could be very helpful. But I also, it also makes me think that authoritarianism is going to be with us for a while, and that's a concern. I was thinking about this, and I'd love to hear whatever you have to say about 2021 being the year of the Hierophant and or 2020 being the year of the Emperor. I'd love to hear it. For me, with the year of the Emperor here in the United States, it was certainly about, the question, the Emperor is very much about government very often, and the question of what role should government have in our lives. Dina says Uncommon Tarot has Hierophant as the wise one. Yes, indeed. I have that deck right here, and indeed it does. And so there we could start to think about greater wisdom in 2021, which would be a wonderful thing. And you know how this got me thinking, and I just want to give you this thought here, is if we think about the cards as they pair or triple out by number in the major arcana, the Hierophant pairs with Temperance. And I was thinking today, thinking about this question, thinking about the interplay between the Hierophant and Temperance and how much they need each other to function well. Eva said, could it have a religious connotation? It can. It can. And certainly we recognize that there is a voice right now wanting to make a certain type of religion much more prevalent in public life. And we may have different feelings about all of that, but that could certainly speak to that, for sure. Hierophant is also about institutions. So, again, it could speak to medicine, it could speak to banking, it could speak to a lot of things. Shannon, I have a question. I think that different readers have individual interpretations of specific cards that are unique to that reader. Do you agree? 100%. And so very often when we talk about the cards, we have to say, well, for me, this card means this. And we may know in general what the archetype is, and we may agree on that archetype. But there's a difference between like what the archetype is, what the spiritual lesson of the card is, what it means in a particular reading at a particular time, and how we ourselves tend to see it. And yeah, it can be very individual, and we need to talk about it that way and sort of honor it that way. For sure, I think. What do you think? Dina says, we are moving from an emperor to a wise elder as leader. Emperor to Hierophant, that is a way to look at it. For sure. And Dina apologizes for the politics there. But I mean, it's hard to talk about the emperor and the Hierophant and not talk about government and politics, because there it is. Jake5345, who is Robin, Emperor and Hierophant. Could this be about one president going out of office and a new one coming in? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Although it's important to remember that we'll see it from that perspective as Americans. And I think most of the people in the world are looking at the US elections, but this is for the whole planet, not just for the US. But yeah, I certainly saw it that way, Robin, absolutely. Dave, I'm a great believer in separation of church and state. Me too. And recently that line has become disturbingly blurred. I hope we can heal that trend. And again, with the Hierophant there, that's a little scary. But that's why I thought this was so interesting. So these two cards have the same number, right? They're both 5s. And Temperance adds balance and blending with the Hierophant. The Hierophant on his own does not necessarily know how to compromise, but with Temperance, he does. Now, to Temperance, the Hierophant brings wisdom and authority to find the right solution. So looking at how these two cards go together as 5s, I think is very, very interesting. La Morena, glad Emperor is over. Hierophant may be better. I don't know. Some read it very negatively, but I could see some positive elements. But 2022 as lovers seems promising. Agreed. Agreed. Then Chariot, fast growth, hopefully. Agreed. Okay, we are in our final minute. Make sure you drop your shameless self-promotion. Let me once again remind you to come to our free class Saturday, 10:30 a.m. right here. And also, if you haven't done so already, get your ticket to StarCon coming up January 22nd through 24th. And you can get a ticket for my class on December 17th. Tarot Stories, Trends, and Blends. How we put the cards together to tell a story. Oh, very good. Very good, Dina. Dina says, oh, yeah, well, Taurus and Sagittarius get along. And these are the correspondences of these cards. Hierophant being Taurus and Temperance being Sagittarius. Good point. Good point. I love it. Okay, my friends, that is our time. I want to thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. I appreciate our tarot community. I'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday. And of course, I'm always available for readings by phone, Skype, FaceTime, Messenger, or Zoom. Thank you all, everyone, for being here. See you Saturday. Take care.